Well, hello, friend. Welcome back to another episode of Artworks for Teachers. I'm your host, Susan Riley, and today I am joined by Nina Kenny McCray, who is the founder of Arts Without Boundaries in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And I am so thrilled for you to be able to listen to her because during our conversation, she's sharing so many gems. I'm serious. Like every 5 seconds, she's dropping something that I wanted to take a note about or to jot down on a post-it like, oh my gosh, I have to remember that. She is brilliant as the founder and director of this organization, which is serving students in the Philadelphia area with musical theater opportunities. But it goes beyond than just the musical theater opportunities. When you listen to Nina and her passion for not just the arts, but also her city and the community that they're building together, you're going to find that the arts are just a starting point for all of the ways that she is working to build life skills and learning opportunities for these students. So I'm really excited for you to listen to today's show. And I hope that at the end, you'll get in touch with Nina because she is a powerhouse. So without further ado, here's our interview. All right. Well, hello, Nina. Thank you so much for joining us today on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Susan. I really, really appreciate it.
Well, I'm so excited to learn more about you and your organization. So, can we start by having you share a little bit about yourself and about Arts Without Boundaries?
Sure. So, my name is Nina Kenny McCray. I am from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I am a creative in all different types of ways. But one of my biggest things is I love working with children, specifically Black and Brown children in the Philadelphia area that do not have access to arts programming, specifically musical theater, where it's the three disciplines. So a lot of my time has been used helping others cultivate their programs, but then also building out my program in an area of West Philadelphia that doesn't have arts programming as an outlet for kids in this area. So I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a singer, writer. I'm kind of a creative in every sense of the word. So that's a little bit of me in a nutshell.
Which is fantastic. And so, tell me a little bit more about Arts Without Boundaries and how you got started with that.
Okay, so this is a long story, but I'm going to keep it short. So, Arts Without Boundaries was kind of birthed out of a senior project that I had my senior year of college. I went to a performing arts college, so my major was professional music. So it was like you can build, you can do an album, you can do a show, you can do anything. And at the time, I was working at the Cambridge YMCA, and I had built a like a little musical theater class, just to kind of keep the kids busy, not to have them all running all over the place. And I realized that I really loved working with kids in the art space, especially where they don't have it all the time. Because I feel like the parents are engaged. They're like, what is my child coming home singing? Or why are they excited about Disney movies the way they've never been excited about them? So I decided to just do my senior project on building out an arts program. And after I graduated, I was like, I think I want to keep doing this. So I just kept on building it and building it. And then when I got married, I moved to New Jersey. And I was working as a program coordinator at the YMCA Cambridge. You'll see a theme in my story, always working through nonprofits. But I realized I really wanted to build a program. So I kept working on the program, but then we decided to move back to Philly, where is originally where I always wanted to come back to. This is my home base. This is where my heart is. This is where I creatively learned how to do pretty much everything that I do. So I was like, I want to come back home. And so me and my husband and my infant son moved back to Philly, where I was able to get opportunities with the Kimmel Center and other organizations. And Arts Without Boundaries just started growing and growing. And our first program was Black Girls Do Broadway. We had a program specifically for girls of color who wanted to have access to Broadway training, but maybe couldn't afford it. It's expensive. I know, my parents know. Yeah. It's very, very pricey. And so it was really one of those things where I was meeting girls along my teaching journey that was like, Miss Nina, like, do you have anything? Do you teach lessons? And I couldn't teach everybody individually, but I was like, I think I can put something together. And so we did that for 2 years, and then COVID happened, where all the funding, as you know, arts funding, where we were just getting our momentum and getting funding, everything was kind of stopped. So we decided to do it virtually. which opened it up where we had girls from Atlanta, Michigan, coming in. But then I also realized all my girls were graduating. And so I really felt a need to address the need for arts with Black boys. I have a son, and I think that was one of my things. He's very creative, and I couldn't find an arts program for boys of color where kind of the curriculum was curated for them. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, okay, I'll do it. And so after that, we started Arts Without Boundaries Youth Community Theater, which we just ended our second year, our second production. Our first one was The Lion King, which the Kimmel Center really helped us get costumes, and they gave us scripts. I mean, they really, really, really helped us because I had that relationship as a teaching artist, which is why I always encourage teaching artists to maintain these really great connections with arts or larger arts organizations, especially if you're small, because you can bring things into communities maybe the way others can. And then this year, we wanted to do The Wiz, and as you know, The Wiz was on Broadway, so all the licensing was halted, and I was like, I really want to do The Wiz. Our community is so excited, and I was like, I'm just going to rewrite it. So I wound up rewriting the play, and it was called Journey in Oz. Me and my husband did 11 original songs, and we presented it to the kids, and we had 32 kids put on 2 shows. For Journey in Oz, we had about 400 people show up, and so it really impacted the community in a way that I didn't realize until people were like, we need more. And so for me, Arts Without Boundaries is definitely a story of like community, of creativity, also of making sure that kids have resources, and that no matter their background, financial standing of their family, every child should have access to quality. I always highlight quality because there's a lot of arts programs, right? But quality is, are you curating the curriculum for the kids that you're serving? I knew the kids that I was serving. I knew a lot of them had never been to Broadway, had never done a show, but they were creative. A lot of them would get in trouble for being talkative in school or being the crazy thing was those kids were the ones that shined in arts programming. And so I would ask them, I would say, so what kind of arts do you do in school? And they're like, oh, we don't have it. Like we don't have it. And that was heartbreaking because I'm like, some of these kids, I know me, I shined in the arts. I was extremely shy. I was scared of everybody, literally, like eye contact not happening, talking to you not happening. So seeing some of these kids who had behavior issues or had issues with self-esteem or confidence or felt they were always overlooked were shining in this program, I knew that Arts Without Boundaries was onto something. So we just kept going. We got partnerships with a local church that had a CDC. We've had community members. We have our community grandmoms and aunties is what we call them. And they're just women from the community who for 2 years have just been coming and taking up space with us. So anything that we need, if we need snacks, if the kids need a hug, if the kids need a good talking to, we always have this really beautiful community. And so that's what Arts Without Boundaries is. It's really just a space for kids to be exactly who they are, but to have a community around them that supports them and is able to build curriculum that provides a space for them to be confident, to grow into themselves, and to also be able to have community with each other. So I think that's what Arts Without Boundaries is.
Such a wonderful story. And I gotta tell you, I feel like kindred spirits, because that's exactly how our organization started. This organization started because I was in the middle of my final master's degree project. So this was an project for that.
No.
And it just kind of evolved from there based around, seeing the needs that weren't being met and then stepping into that and just kind of taking it and saying, fine, I'll do it.
Yep.
And I think that's so important. I love hearing your passion and the stories that you tell about the kids shining in musical theater and in the arts in general, in places where most people write them off, quite honestly. I mean, I saw that a ton when I was working in my school. I had teachers tell me, that child is never going to be able to memorize all of those lines. And I'm like, you watch.
They do memorize it, and everybody else's too.
Yes. Yes. They have a reason. They have a purpose.
Yeah.
Right. And also, I love that you're providing opportunities. I heard that really loud and clear because, Malcolm Gladwell says that the thing that separates those who succeed and those who don't, based on the research, is really the opportunities that they've been provided.
Yep.
If you are not provided with opportunities through no fault of your own, right, then you're at a disadvantage from the start. So I
Yep.
love that you're providing those opportunities and making this an option
Yep.
for everyone,
Yep.
regardless of their background.
Yep, absolutely. That's our goal, and we're so excited because we're continually growing. And I think the excitement that people see are the boys
Mm.
that come into our program.
Yeah.
That's the part that gets everyone. Black boys in theater, although it's not talked about a lot, but I've noticed like it's not the most, especially the community that I serve.
Mhm.
It's not really the most popular thing, I think.
Yeah.
But then when the kids get in the space, which is why it was important to curate Journey and Oz this year, because we incorporated jazz and
Mm.
R&B, rap. We made some of the characters that the boys would be attracted to, because one of the things I was noticing was like, yeah, we'll have girls come all day long,
Right.
but what about the boys who aren't good in sports, or even may want to explore creatively, but they don't feel like they have a safe place to? And so that was one of the biggest things that we were focusing on. And we had an increase. We had 4 boys last year. We had 10 this year.
Wow.
And then I think we actually increased. We had registration is open now, and I think we're increasing this year as well. So we really want to support our boys and creatively in what they want to do. So that's one of the big highlights that we're highlighting right now, is really getting our boys invested to keep them number one, out of trouble. Philadelphia does have some issues as far as just violence, and so one of the big things for me is I also run a grant for the city under anti-violence. So a lot of my stuff is it intersects. So I see the impact that programs make, and I would love to see more arts programs. And so I think it just starts with me kind of being that person that's like, we can use this as a tool for our boys as well, and our girls. But one of the things I've noticed is the boys need more options other than sports. So
Yes. Well, and you're also doing the smart thing of being able
mhm,
to, and this is a lesson for everybody,
mhm,
when it's not just us writing something or providing something, it's
mhm.
meeting them where they are.
Yep.
So knowing your audience. And so for those
Mhm,
boys, rap, R&B, jazz, those are the things that they're interested in.
mhm.
Maybe that is the access point or the
Yep.
gateway into musical theater that they would have otherwise
Mhm.
dismissed. Right.
Yep.
But if you didn't do that, if you just presented just the musical theater option, certainly I don't think you'd get nearly the amount of response that you've gotten. So I think that's
No.
fantastic. That's a great lesson for everybody to take with them.
Yes.
Um, I am hearing such passion for
Mhm.
Philadelphia coming from
Yes.
you today. So can
Mhm.
you tell us a little bit about your upbringing in West
Mhm.
Philadelphia and how your early experiences in that city
Mhm.
with the arts in particular have influenced you?
Yeah, so I always say West Philadelphia born and raised, because I literally am West Philadelphia born and raised. Literally, I tell people that. Growing up in Philadelphia was really I have this conversation with people all the time, and it might just be the way my brain worked when I was little. My favorite book when I was a little girl was Anna Green Gables,
Mm.
which was also very interesting for a little black girl to be carrying around. My dad got me like the trilogy when it was all, I don't know if you
Yes.
know Anna Green Gables, but it was
Yes.
a huge book.
Yes.
And at like 12, I would be walking around reading. I was such a reader, which also like complemented just my creativity.
Mm.
But I would read that book and I would think of different ways that I could get, like the different ways that Anne would sing things. And I mean, again, I was a very different kind of kid. So I was a creative kid, and sometimes a little bit of a loner, because sometimes you're kind of, when you're creative, your brain just works differently. And when I was little, that's just how it was. But there was an organization called Freedom Theater, and it was based in Philadelphia. It was one of the first. It was the first, or I believe one of the first, Black repertory theaters in the country. Leslie Odom went there. Denzel Washington supported it. Erica Alexander. Like, it was a lot of people that really benefited from Freedom Theater. And so my mom was like, I think we should put her in there. She's shy. And that was my entryway. I walked into this beautiful building on Broad Street. It was like Fame, literally. Like, I'm like, if you can think of like Fame, like the kids all over, like that is exactly what it was. And I just fell in love with dance, but then I realized I could sing, and not just play sing, but like I could really sing. So I was just like, my mom was like, let's move you to vocal. And I was like, well, I want to be in dance. Dance was where all the cool girls were. So I was like, I want to stay with them. But thank goodness for my parents, who were like, let's move you, and we want you to use your voice more. So I fell in love with vocal arts, and so I started doing that. I started taking classes at Settlement. I started doing little shows around the city, and I just fell in love with singing. That was my thing, and that's when my voice started really being heard because I'm like, I'm just gonna sing. Like I still want to talk to people. Don't get that wrong, but I would sing to you. So that's kind of where my journey started, and I was able to meet friends who now are also doing amazing things in the city. But we all started as 10, 11-year-old kids in this theater, Freedom Theater, and I always want to give them their flowers because they have done so much for Black artists that I can't even name all the people that probably have been through the doors, have been impacted by the teachers, but they just placed a discipline and a standard of excellence. And so you knew when you saw Freedom Theater kids, them kids were some bad kids. Like, we were 10-year-olds harmonizing. Like,
Wow.
it was crazy, dancing, putting on shows. So that was where it started. But then I also realized I wanted to get more of that formal education. So settlement definitely helped with that. The crazy thing is I applied to go to the performing arts school and didn't get in. And so I was like, oh, maybe I'm just not great, you know? But then 4 years later, I got a scholarship to Berklee College of Music. So I was like, maybe that wasn't my journey, but maybe it was also to share. Because even now I share with kids who don't get in, keep going. There's other opportunities, which is why Arts Without Boundaries were very intentional, especially with our high schoolers.
Yeah.
Like, keep going. Even if there's a no, there's a yes somewhere. So I don't want you to think that it's not. So me growing up in Philly, I just always saw it in beautiful colors. And I tell people this, there is things that go wrong, right? But I don't ever remember the city how people tell me it was when I was younger. I just always saw it in beautiful, bright colors because that's just the communities that I was in, no matter what space I was in. And so I try to bring that in everything that I do is like, yeah, Philly does have its stuff. And they're like, Nina, you don't remember this when you were 12? No, I remember being outside with my friends trying to figure out a dance move, or I remember being in Freedom Theater. I don't remember these things. And so I think it's really important that I share with people, like, growing up in Philly as a creative, I always felt like I had a space. I always felt like I had friends that understood me. I think my first group of friends were my theater friends. Like, school was cool, but my theater friends, those were my people. Like, those were, and so I think my journey in the arts in Philly was just one that was filled with love, compassion, understanding, a very tough but great teachers that really let us know you want to do the arts, but as a Black girl or Black boy, you're going to have to really work at this. Like, you're going to have to make sure that you have a range of knowledge. Yeah. And it's unfortunate that we have to do that, but it's a reality. And I'm so grateful that our instructors were very intentional about that. And even some of the stuff I learned as a little girl, I'm applying to our kids now. So growing up in Philly was a beautiful experience. Yes, it had its moments, but my love for Philly runs so deep. And we'll always run deep.
I
think
love
it's
it.
just a beautiful space.
Yes, and I mean that clearly shines through. And I love that about the experience of your experience is based around what your own experience, right? It's not necessarily shaped by external forces. It's really your own smaller community that has really done that for you. So now you've talked a couple of times about other organizations that you've worked with, like the Kimmel Center and the Y. I know that you've also worked with Boys and Girls Clubs.
Yes.
So can you give some advice for those who are looking to partner with organizations outside of their own? How best to do that? How can we approach them? How can we do a true partnership with perhaps organizations that are much larger than what we're doing currently?
So one of the things that I was told was when you go in and you want something from somebody, don't start with asking for it. Always see how you can contribute to their space first. So one of the things that I always do is I always introduce myself. I always let them know what my skills are. And I say, is there anything that I can do in this area that could support your mission? Now, a lot of people are like, woo, that's tricky, but it's really not. It could be just having a conversation. It could be just sharing resources. I think a lot of people do not take into account just sharing the resources. I know for me, a lot of my ends was as a teaching artist. I don't know why my brain functioned that way, but I was like, I'm going to come in as a teaching artist because if they see what I'm actually doing to support their program, there is no way they're not going to, in the end, be like, you know what? Nina's doing something I want to support. And I'll be honest, every single time that I've asked for something or I've had a request for something, it's always been an absolute, but it's always been because I've come in serving first,
Yes.
and then making sure that they see the work. The arts is interesting. Everyone says they can teach, everyone says they can do certain things, but in reality, it's so many organizations, and you got to show people first. And I'm not saying do stuff for free, because your time is valuable,
Right.
but making sure people know that you're available as a resource. Even now, if I see something, if I see a grant, if I see a program that's not mine that I think would be good for organizations that I partner with, I will without hesitation send it to them, and it just keeps that relationship. So for me, it's like building a relationship. And I tell people partnerships are marriages, and I know people are like, Nina, that's intense. I'm like, it's really not, because I feel like a partnership, a marriage is what, two people coming together, building something together. You have to have clear expectations, clear standards, and I think that's what a partnership is. So I think whenever you're doing something with any organization, you want to come into it with those things in mind. But before you get to marriage, what do you have to do? You gotta date, you gotta see how things. So I would say take your time. Everything that I've done has been in Philly has been almost a 7-year process. So, and we're only in our second year of like independent programming. So I would say don't get discouraged if it's not what it looks or sounds like in the beginning, but keep going. It's going, and I always tell people it's gonna be okay. Take a breath. Take your time. Everything has its place. Everything has its season and its reason. And so that's one of the biggest advices that I would give to anyone, because that was advice that was given to me.
I love that. And
Mm-hmm.
leading with as a certain servant leader. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's one of our core values. I know it's
Yeah.
something that it has helped us along the way. And I think that you're
Mm-hmm.
absolutely right when you, and I also tell this to people all the time. It's not coming with a handout. It's offering,
Mm-hmm.
how can I help give you my hand and help
Yep.
you together, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I love that has also worked for you, and clearly you're doing good things with your partners. I mean, they're totally willing to help, and that they're a major facet of
Mm-hmm.
what you do, which is fantastic.
Yep.
So what are some specific skills and disciplines that you are looking to cultivate in the young
Mm-hmm.
people through your programming?
Whew. Okay. So the biggest one for me is confidence.
Mm.
That is one of the things that I severely struggled with when I was younger. And I think confidence can lead to so many, and I'm not saying have a false sense of who you are or anything like that, but I'm like, have confidence in who you are. And I think through our program, even when they come in, we have like a phrase that they say every week. So I am great because I am amazing. But how are you saying it? Are you coming in saying I'm amazing? And I'm like, no, no. And I'm always the one at the door. So I'm like, if you say it like that, I need you to go outside and whatever, spin in a circle, whatever you need to do with mom and dad. But I want you to come in, even if it's not, you don't feel it. I need you to say it like you feel it. And so it's like making sure they have confidence. Some of the other skills is discipline. I've noticed that a lot of youth, the discipline is, it's like if something doesn't work out the first time, it's like, well, I'm not going to do it. And I think it's just maybe the culture. Like you see people being famous off of a video or a reel. And I'm like, no, like this is a discipline. So making sure you're rehearsing or making sure you're singing. I tell all the parents, even the parents, and I tell a lot of arts professionals, you're teaching the kids and you're training the parents.
Yes.
And I don't think people try to be like, no, I'm just with the kids. No, 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 no. When that child signs up and you are that child's Mrs. or Mr., you are training that parent, because a lot of our parents had never done musical theater. So they didn't understand when I say be here at 9:00, I actually mean 8:45, because that's when you need to put your jazz shoes on. That's when your stuff needs to be, you need to be sitting on the dance floor ready to warm up at 9:00. And they're like, well, you said 9. I said, no, they need to be early. And then one of our things is if you're late, 9:00 is late, you automatically get 50 jumping jacks. Ooh. So you have kids. I mean, it is like a whirlwind. And those parents are like, I tried to get them here, but it's disciplining them, because a lot of these kids want to do the arts professionally. That's the rule. That's the standard, right? So we're teaching discipline, even in school. If you have an assignment and your teacher says it's done at a certain time, make sure you're getting it done. Set a schedule for yourself. So one of the things we do is in the beginning, we set schedules. We're like, your child should be rehearsing 30 minutes a day. Let them do it before homework or after homework, but it has to be at some point during the day, or if there's a show, the monologues need to be met. Like, we're trying to train them. So these things can transcend through any environment, any community. The last thing I would say that we're trying to teach them is that the resilience, right? One of the things we do is we broke up our program into modules. So our first module is training. Our second module is the auditions and rehearsal. And auditions is one of those places where we got to teach resilience, because we have kids who want things so bad, and normally they get it, right? You can get it in the snap of a finger. Right. So when we do auditions and you don't get something and you're completely crushed, how do we build you up again? And so one of the things that we do is, when we do cast, the first thing that we do is we send the list out to all the parents, and we ask the parents to have a conversation with the kids about the role that they got, and that no role is too big or too small. And then we do check-ins the next day we're together. So if a parent messages us and is like, Sarah is really struggling. Like, she wanted this role. She's sad. She doesn't want to come. We say, bring her in. And we, as teachers, we literally have this moment with Sarah where we're like, listen, you didn't get this role, but this is where we see you shine. And we also have like a rubric system, which could be just my program management backside. But I like to have stuff where I can share with parents during the audition what we saw, what we didn't see, and how we can support them, but also as parents, how you can support them. Yeah. So yes, it's arts, but it's really helping the parents know their kids better. It's the kids learning how to learn their skills better and being resilient. And I will say, like, we had some kids who were like, if I don't get the role of Dorothy, I am out. Well, our character, her name was Dee. And we changed Toto to Otto, which was a boy. But they were like, I'm out of here. And I was like, no. And the parents were like, well, my child doesn't want to come. No, bring them. Because in life, they're going to get told no. If you set the standard of no and they can just leave now for just a play, imagine if they get no to college, or if they get no for a job. Like, I'm really being intentional about like making sure our kids have community, but they're building creatively. They're able to be resilient humans. Even if they don't go into theater, they're able to be resilient and bounce back from things, because life can be hard. And we don't shy from that. Our teachers are like, life is hard, y'all. Life can get really, really tough. And as teenagers, we got a lot of kids moving into teenagers, and that's interesting. That's a whole nother podcast. But even with our kids who are going into high school, who are with us last year, this year, there's different things that we're noticing, and we're just trying to be like, hey, are you all right? You doing okay? And being able to have that community. So those are the three things that I think we are really, really trying to instill within our program and our curriculum.
Yeah. When you say community, I mean, what a gem, because it's not just the community around the arts component. It's really life skills. Learning all of these skills that are so important. And when people talk about why do we need the arts, this is exactly why.
Yep.
This is exactly why. I love that. So speaking of the arts in general and arts education, from your perspective and what you've seen so far, as from your own experiences as well as what you're seeing right now in AWB, what do you think are some of the biggest challenges facing arts education, and how does your organization try to address them?
Okay. So I think that one of the big things is funding.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah.
It's funding, and it's also people taking the time to go into spaces that are not conventional spaces. I think that's the biggest thing. I've noticed we've gone, like, you can go outside of Philadelphia, and I mean, these theater programs are like stacked, right? And then you come into Philly, and it's like, if you don't go downtown to Rittenhouse, or if you don't go certain places, you don't have access. Yeah. And so I think funding is one of the biggest things. Is even for me as a small organization, funding can be really, really tough to come by, because sometimes people don't see the vision for kids doing musical theater in the way that I'm teaching it. Yes. Thankfully, people are coming around, because we're getting a little bit more traction with what we do. But I think that's one of the big things. And I also think diversity in teaching artists. And that is something that I advocate. If you are in a school that is predominantly Black and brown, we should be really making an effort to have Black and brown teaching artists. Not to say that it has to be all, but I will say, when I've been in spaces as teaching artists for over 15 years, I am normally the only Black woman, man, anything. Wow. And so it really is jarring to me that sometimes I have to be the face, the poster child, when I know there's other people who would be great for it, but maybe they don't know about it or they're not tapped in. So I think really having outreach for teaching artists of color, especially in Philadelphia, I'm noticing that, like, and sometimes the resources, right? We can't afford to just be teaching artists. Like, we have to teach or have other jobs. So I think that's something that I'm really, really, really starting to notice as I'm like, where's even me trying to find Black male teaching artists? It has been really tough because a lot of them have to work full time. So they want their weekends to kind of decompress. And so I think those are the three things that I'm really noticing. But the last one, the diversity in teaching artists, I think that would bring in so many more kids. That would bring in different ideas and perspectives that I think a lot of youth need.
Yeah. And I actually I want to expand on that for just a minute,
Mm-hmm.
because it's something that, as our organization has grown, it's something that we have been
Mm-hmm.
intentional with, but we've also
Yeah.
struggled to find. To be quite honest, when we run our conferences and our events,
Mm-hmm.
we purposefully put out calls specifically to artists of color, teaching artists of color, teachers of color.
Yeah.
But it has been a challenge
Yeah.
for us to get a response to.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, what are some things that your organization is doing to
Mm-hmm.
try and, acknowledging the difficulties that are there? What are some ways that you have found to be successful in encouraging more teaching artists of color?
So I think one of the big things for me is talking to people.
Yeah.
I reach out to different local theaters. I reach out to anybody, honestly. I will be like, listen, we need a teacher that can work with this certain demographic. And I'm very honest about what we need. I think sometimes we want to just say, oh, you're a teaching artist. Just every teaching artist will not be for what you need. So I think me is reaching out and just seeing what the networks are.
Mm-hmm.
Also, one of the big things, LinkedIn has been such a great blessing to me, because I'm able to kind of cruise through stuff. And I know people cruise through, I cruise through LinkedIn like people cruise through Instagram and TikTok.
Yes.
So I'm always looking for different people or ideas. And I think we have to be intentional about sending out these signals to people, and then also providing training. I think there are creatives who want to be teaching artists, but it sounds so far-fetched. Like, teaching artists, that sounds a little, a little foo-foo. Like, I have to do this. And it's like, no, it's really not as complex as you make it. So I think having training and accessible training, I always say that, accessible training where people who may not have done it before can get this access to different trainings, to different opportunities. I think it would definitely open up the door for more diverse teaching artists.
I love that. I love that. So before we go, let us know what is your vision for AWB, and how do you envision it, like, growing?
So, my vision right now is to keep doing what I'm doing, but also to expand throughout the city. So I know we've been talking to have different site locations. We also definitely want to get into curriculum. So building out curriculum for these large organizations, building out research and data points that they can use to better serve the kids that they serve. Also, one of the big things is we're working on licensing Journey to Oz, because it is all original. We're so excited to start working on licensing that and possibly offering that to different schools that may need a new entryway into the theater arts. And so we're just looking on getting bigger and expanding, impacting more kids, training more teachers, teaching artists. We're just really looking to make a huge impact in the art space, especially, like I said, for teachers of color, teaching artists for color, and for children. So
that is amazing. I love that. So where can people find you and stay in touch?
So we are on Instagram at AWB Philly. You can go on there. It's also on Instagram, Philly AWB. They can also go to our website, artswithoutboundaries.org. And we're really, thankfully we have interns for our social media, so they keep us young and youthful. And youth college kids. I tell people that go to your college and get creative kids, because they you feed them a good snack, give them a good stipend. They will really show up for you.
They will.
Um,
They
so
will.
I would say really use the colleges around you and give them that experience and exposure too. So yeah, you can do any of those three things
Fantastic.
to stay in contact.
We will put that all in the show notes as well so that people can easily go ahead and just find you in
Awesome.
all of those spaces. Nina, thank you so much for joining me today. I have learned so much from you. You've just dropped so many gems today, and I'm excited for the journey for you and for all of us ahead with all of the things that you're doing.
Thank you so much, Susan. I appreciate your time, and I'm just excited to see what else we can possibly collaborate on or any more conversations. It was such a pleasure talking to you.
Absolutely.